Well, after two horrible tragedies, the Baudelaires finally put their foot down and start taking action in the best way possible.
Look away, 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 look away.
Hey guys, here for Series Unfortunate Events, Season 1, Episode 4, The Reptile Room, Part 2, and I was definitely looking forward to this episode. I know that I wasn't as big as a fan of Episode 3. I still really loved Episode 3. I still thought it was a very well done episode, but I really didn't know where the show was going to go after what happened in Part 1. I thought Part 2 was definitely going to be different, and this was definitely closer to what an episode of the show should be. For me, this was easily the best episode of the season so far. I really did love this episode, and what I really loved the most about this episode is that it was very simple in plots, but it definitely had, I think, the most exciting plot out of everything, and also was the most character-focused. It had some really fun moments. We had a really nice kind of like side caper going on. Just, in general, just a really great, thrilling episode that actually did take itself seriously and worked really well because of it. And I thought this was overall just a really well-done episode, and we need to get an episode like this every single episode should be as good as this one is. Not that the show hasn't been great, but this is definitely what I want the show to be. I really did love this episode overall, and let's just get into this episode because I really did want to get into it. So we start off and the Baudelaires wake up, and they discover that there's no sign of Monty. They obviously know that Monty was planning on waking them, but they're woken up by dawn, and they find the reptile room door open. They go inside, and it doesn't take them long to realize that Monty is dead at his desk with puncture marks on his cheek, and I love it they tell us this, that at the very beginning we know, okay, Monty's dead, you know, because a lot of shows, they would take a lot of time to really decipher what happened to this character. They would have had him gone away and the kids wouldn't have known. So I like that immediately we know, okay, Monty's dead and Olaf is responsible for it. You know, there's no other possible scenario. You know, Olaf shows up, now tragedy strikes them. Things were completely fine before Stefano showed up, and now it makes sense why. So Olaf comes in, taunts the children, points out that Monty died of a snake bite, not murder, and, you know, he goes on to talk to them about their fortune and things like that, and he says that they're going to Peru, and this was by far Neil Patrick Harris's best episode. Like, he channeled so much throughout this, and especially having to play two distinctly different personalities, because he has to go in and out between Stefano and between Count Olaf, and he did such an incredible job with that throughout this episode. But anyways, he says they're going to Peru, and when they refuse, Olaf picks up his luggage, and one of them makes a Sunny-like noise, and Violet Klaus demand that Olaf release their baby sister. He tells him to get in the car, and he won't hurt her, and once again, Sunny is being used as bait, and I really feel bad for the poor baby that's playing Sunny, because constantly this baby is being put into very dangerous situations and is constantly being used as a bait and is probably terrified on set. But Olaf drives down the driveway, another car drives in, Olaf swerves to avoid it, ramming it into a snake topiary, and that is basically how we start off, you know, what is a very crazy episode. So Posing gets out of his car, Klaus gets Sunny out of the suitcase, and Olaf reverts to his Stefano accent, obviously because he has to cover up his identity in any way possible. And I thought they did a really good job at not making Poe look like a dumbass in this situation, because I've said it before, Poe's not a dumbass. Poe is someone who just sees the good in everyone. He doesn't want to believe, I think, that there's evil out there. I think that he tries to make something positive out of a negative situation. Now, we don't know a ton about Poe. Honestly, we don't. We know that he has kids. We know that he has a wife that thinks of very serious things and makes them funny. We don't know why she does that, but Poe is a character that I think is, one, very naive. He does not really understand what's going on, and that is quite funny, definitely. But he's also very caring, and I think he just sees the good in everything, and you definitely see that here, because Violet tells Poe that Monty's dead and says the children are confused and that there's no way, and Poe says that Monty called him to get passports for the trip to Peru, and Olaf quickly grabs them, obviously because, you know, they're going to Peru, and the children then insist that Stefano is in fact Count Olaf, but Poe doesn't believe them, and Klaus says that Count Olaf has a tattoo of an eye on his left ankle, and Poe asks Olaf to pull up his cuff. He smiles and does so, and there's no sign of the tattoo. So again, Olaf really did all he could to try to cover up his identity, and, you know, Violet and Klaus point out out that, he shaved his head and he made his beard longer. It's not very hard to tell that this is Count Olaf. However, Poe says that none of them are going anywhere until the police arrive to check Monty's corpse. And obviously, it's very important. And I love when Poe called, they thought it was a prank call. Just little things like that I just find to be really funny. And the show, again, did just handle dark humor so well. And this was definitely the best use of it in this episode. I really did love it here. And what I also love is that this is the episode I think that has the least appearances of Lemony. And that's great because as much as I love Patrick Warburton, I think he's a great character. I love what he does on this show. We don't need him every 5 seconds, and I like that he was not in this episode a ton. He was only in maybe like 4 or 5 scenes, and most of them, he needed to be there. He needed to explain a few things to us, and I like the way that was done. But inside the manor, Poe calls the police. Meanwhile, Olaf then calls his troop and tells them to come over, and the henchman of indeterminate gender arrives posing as the medical examiner, because this is, in fact, the guy who's going to be the one to, examine, basically be the fake medical examiner, and immediately they can tell that this isn't really the examiner, and that this is, in fact, one of, Olaf's actors, and Olaf then takes the henchman to the reptile room. Poe agrees with Olaf about having the children stay outside and offers to wait with the Baudelaires while the henchman and Poe go in, and Olaf would rather not, but Violet suggests that Olaf go in with the henchman, and Olaf has no choice but to agree. And Violet, of course, you can tell, what I love about this episode is that you can tell throughout this entire episode, Violet and Klaus have their own plot. They're doing whatever they can to plot against Count Olaf. They're trying to get him as red-handed as possible, and that's something that's so great to see. After them being put through the ringer 2 times, not once, but 2 times in the show, it is so rewarding to finally see them take action. That was something in this episode brilliantly realizes. So once they're alone, Poe offers his condolences to the children and assures them that he won't let Olaf be their new guardian without some very thorough paperwork. Because again, he was led to believe that close meant, literally close, and now he needs to read the fine print. So the henchman's then startled by a reptile and screams. Poe and the Baudelaires run in, and the henchman reports that Monty died of a snake bite, and the episode has a great running gag of, oh, it's just the iguana clock, and what I love about this is that we were introduced to that, and that was the very first scene we saw in this two-parter, was Lemony explained to us what the iguana clock was, and it didn't really seem like it meant much of anything, but it actually does. It's just like what they did with Violet's left hand in the first episode, where it seems like, okay, Violet writes with the right hand. What does this matter? How is this relevant to anything? But no, it actually is one of the most relevant parts of the episode, and that's very much the role that the iguana clock plays in this episode. What I love about this show is the way they take things that seem so mundane and seem so routinal and don't really mean much of anything, but they actually get it to mean something big. The iguana clock actually is kind of the rising action throughout this episode. Every time that iguana clock goes off, things get more and more intense, and basically, I love the way that iguana clock really served as, the rising action, things like that. I thought that was extremely well done. But the henchman startled by Reptile and screams. Poe and the Baudelaires run in. The henchman reports that Monty died of a snake bite, but Violet points out that Monty would know better than to let a snake bite him, because, Monty was very good with this stuff. He had been working with snakes and reptiles for years. He had a room called the Reptile Room. You would think he knew what he was doing, which he did in fact know what he was doing. So Olaf says that they found the venom of the incredibly deadly viper in Monty's blood, but as we know, the incredibly deadly viper wouldn't hurt a fly, and that's something that, Monty made very clear, but Olaf is trying to do whatever he can to prove to Poe that this is a, legit deadly viper, and that the deadly viper is what it sounds like, and Violet says it's the least dangerous creature in the animal kingdom, but Poe doesn't believe her, but Violet says that they can prove it's harmless, and however, the viper is missing from its cage, so again, I love that while they're on top of things, there are still some things that they just can't control, and this was, something where this wasn't something that, this was clearly something that Olaf did to get them in trouble, and Poe assumes that Monty didn't properly lock the cage, and it slipped out, and that's exactly what happened. We know probably what happened, that Olaf found a way to, mess with the cage and probably let the thing free, and obviously now it's on the loose. So again, this is a very interesting plot point. It's something that works very well throughout the episode, and even though these two are on top of things, it doesn't show they're not going to get everything solved as well as we think they are, and I definitely did like that. We do have two very intelligent intelligent children here, but they're not perfect. You know, there are just some things that they're not going to be able to solve. There are just some things that they're not going to be able to tell. And I did like the way the episode really understood that. Yes, you can have Violet Klaus be smart, but they're not perfect. You know, they're not perfectly smart. Not everything is great about them. And I really did love the way the episode shows that, because this could easily be something where it could get annoying that Violet and Klaus, you know, they know everything and that they know exactly what they're doing. But what works very well here is that, yes, they do know, you know, a good amount of what they're doing, but they can't fix everything, and I like the way the episode shows that. So Clausen points out that the henchman is in fact just that. He is a henchman, but Poe hasn't met any of them other than the hook-handed man. And again, it might be a dumb reason, but it makes sense. Because yeah, Poe didn't know that Olaf had any other henchmen. He just has seen the hook-handed man. That's the only henchman he's come in contact with, and there's no way, you know, there's no way that Klaus can prove that this is a henchman. So Olaf suggests that the Viper might be ready to strike again, and everyone runs out when they hear a screeching noise. And again, it's the screeching iguana clock, and Olaf tells his children to pack so they can go to Peru. And Violet then reminds Poe that Olaf doesn't have the proper paperwork. And, you know, obviously Poe said that he's not going to let Olaf get away without the paperwork. And Olaf says that no one is leaving the manor with a snake on the loose, and they're under quarantine. And I love the way that he got the rest of the henchmen. He had to say like 2 or 3 times before the henchmen then realized that they had to stop what they're doing and then get over to Olaf. Just little things like that. Just really fun. Just really fun verbal humor that was done very well there. And they finally hear Olaf over the radio. They put in their costumes as policemen, and Poe doesn't see through their disguises. He tells the children to wait upstairs while the adults take care of things. And again, Violet and Klaus try to remind him that these are the same actors that he saw in the play. So it's very easy to tell, but Poe just doesn't see through them because he just wants to believe that these are policemen that are doing their jobs, and that these are, you know, medical examiners that they're doing their jobs. That there can't possibly be, you know, fake medical examiners. There can't possibly be fake police officers. Again, he wants to see the good in everything. He's just in denial about all that stuff. So as the Baudelaires go upstairs, they look at the woman take away Monty's body, and in their room, the children discuss what to do next, because they really don't know what to do. I mean, Olaf seems to be ahead of them in every way, and it really doesn't seem like this is going to work as well as they think, and they figure that Olaf did set the Viper loose, and they figure that they need to find the Viper and prove that it's innocent, because, again, there's nothing wrong with the Viper. Olaf is just trying to make everyone think there's something wrong with the Viper in order to blame him instead of blame them for what they did. Obviously, you know, he's trying to make the Viper look like the you know, the main, you know, the main suspect of what actually happened. So Olaf tells the troop to keep Poe distracted, goes up to the children's room, he draws his knife and goes in, and only to discover that they're gone. Klaus is then hanging below the window by one of Violet's inventions and glances out at the hedge mage, and at the hedge mage and maze, not mage, I can't say maze, maze, and at the center is a statue of a woman holding a telescope. Klaus finally loses grip, he falls, he crawls into the house as Poe notices that Olaf is gone, and he gets Monty's journal from the desk, and inside the book is a ticket with the theater message written on it, and on the wall is a photo of Monty holding a telescope. So again, we're starting to put the clues together on how he really realized all this, and Klaus realizes that it's the same as the device he found on the telescope of the woman in the maze. So again, you can tell that this telescope is playing a role in the show. It's just you don't know what this is all about. You know, Olaf has it, that we know his father has it, now this woman in the maze has it. What's it really all about? Why do we keep seeing this tattoo everywhere? That's something the show still won't tell us, and it's just a really well done mystery that I really do like that the show is waiting out so far. So Klaus then drops the metal piece, and everyone starts to go over, but Sonny cries in the distance, and everyone goes to the foyer, and then we cut to 6 minutes earlier, because there's a lot of stuff that happened that we didn't know about, how this all went down, and I love the way that Lemony gave us a little 6-minute recap, but the difference is between this and the recap in episode 2 is that we needed this recap. We didn't know how these events transpired. So we get 6 minutes earlier. Olaf goes up to the children's room. He draws his knife, goes in, to only discover that they're gone. Violet slips out with Sonny and goes to Monty's car. And Sonny then watches the door while Violet puts on her thinking hair ribbon. She takes a key forward from the key, has Sonny chew into the shape of a lockpick, which we know that Sonny, you know, can do very well. She likes to chew on hard things. And they then open Olaf's suitcase. Inside is a 2-barreled injector, a bottle of liquid, and 2 syringes. Pretty much everything they need. So meanwhile, Sonny sees a Viper slithering past and crawls after it, and basically they realize that all this stuff he used basically to probably sedate Monty and then kill him. That's probably what he did. So Olaf then comes out, he grabs Violet, says he's only taking one of the children to Peru, and we know obviously Violet is the one he'd take. Why? Because Violet is the one that's going to inherit the fortune, and she's the one who's going to get it all, and he wants that fortune from them. So the screeching iguana clock goes off, Violet breaks free of a distracted Olaf, and now everyone stares at Sunny and the Viper coiled around her, and we see Poe, he's freaking out, and probably the funniest line in the entire episode happens here, where the henchmen are trying to figure out what to do, if they should just kill Poe, and Olaf says, waits, if he keeps screaming, he coughs a lot, maybe he'll die of natural causes. That had me dying, because that's something they shown from the first episode, that Poe is this incredibly uncontrollable cough, and it just happens. There's not really much of a reason why it happens, but I love the way that Olaf poked fun at that. I thought that was very funny overall. And again, it's a good way to keep humor in the episode. I feel like if the show didn't have humor, it wouldn't work as well. And that's something the show understands, that it can't be just ultra dark all the time. You need to have that humor in there, and I like they did that here. So everyone stares at Sunny and the Viper coiled up around her. Violet runs in, says what it is, and Klaus comes out and reads Monty's journal entry, proving that the Viper is in fact harmless. And Poe then admits the Viper appears harmless, and Olaf comes in, points out that there are plenty of other deadly demons. He blurts out that he's an expert on snakes, but Clausen points out that earlier Olaf said that he knew nothing about snakes. So how would he know stuff about snakes now? And Poe remembers this as well, demands an explanation, and Olaf says that he was being modest earlier, and that's really all it was, but Klaus accuses him of lying. Violet then dumps out the suitcase's contents, and the bottle holds a deadly venom sample, and Violet has Poe confirm that a sample is missing, and the junk then forms a 2-Fane injector, which is the murder weapon, and Clausen says that Stefano is in fact Olaf, and Poe demands that Olaf expose his left ankle, and this time he does so, and Poe wipes away the makeup, concealing the tattoo, and Poe figures out that Olaf is in fact Stefano, and it's a very well done moment. I love that the kids did this on their own. No one had to do it for them. They successfully proved to Poe that he was Olaf, and I like that while we saw that Poe is in denial about a lot of things, through realizing this, he is willing to protect them, and he will do whatever he can to bring Olaf down. It's this great battle of, eternal forces, with Poe being someone who's in denial but really does want to help the kids, and Olaf being someone who I think is in just as much denial about how much control he really has, but of course is also very evil and vile, coming together, and now we're starting to see really where this is going to go, which I really do love where we're headed with that. So realizing that he's exposed, Olaf sarcastically applauds and admits that he did kill Monty and Gustav. And, of course, Poe knew nothing about Gustav. Kids didn't know either, but Poe promises to send him to jail, tells the officers to arrest him. The banker finally realizes that they're on it, and Monty's reptiles take offense and moved into attack, and Olaf and his troop then run out, and he tells them to take the van, make sure they follow him, and when he goes to international waters, Klaus and the others see Olaf run to the hedge mage, and Poe says that he'll call the police. So the bowlers go into the maze after Olaf. They split up to cut him off, and Olaf ducks into a hidden trapdoor just as the kids arrive, and this is a very well done chasing, I have to say. There was a lot of moving parts of this, but it was done really well. Klaus shows Violet the message. He realizes the device is gone and that Olaf secretly took it from him earlier, so the woman's statue comes to life, revealing that it's actually Jacqueline, that she was just pretending to be a statue this entire time. And I love this. I love that Jacqueline came back into play because, again, it's a role that wasn't in the original show, but this gives her more to do. I love what we saw of Jacqueline in episode 2. I don't know if she's just going to be in every part 2, but this definitely gives me the sense she's going to be in the show more. So she apologized for arriving too late to save Monty, but hopes to bring Olaf to justice, and she tells him to forget Peru because it's compromised, tells him to find their Aunt Josephine. Josephine will tell them everything they need to know, while Jacqueline finds Olaf and recover the spyglass piece. So Josephine probably is the next person they're going to, and once they leave the maze, Jacqueline goes down the trapdoor, and when the children emerge from the maze, they find members of the Herpetological Society taking away Monty's reptiles to other homes. Poe says that he has to take them to their next guardian, Josephine. It's a sad moment because you know what Monty wanted to do with these reptiles and that this was a society that he wanted to prove that they actually were good, and they were against him, and it's just kind of sad the way that's going. But Poe says he's going to take them to the next Guardian, Aunt Josephine, and I love the way that they weren't wanting, they were unwilling to go. Like, they literally told him, no, we don't want to do this, but she's next on the list. There's not much Poe can do about it. And as they drive away, Sonny then waves goodbye to the Viper. Violet asks about Jacqueline, who, when she posed as Poe's secretary, and Poe says that the Baudelaire parents recommended her, we find out. So they knew Jacqueline, which that, again, is very interesting, because, again, we don't know a ton about mother and father, but in the sewers, Jacqueline finds Olaf discarded disguise, follows the trail to the docks and the Prospero. She sees Olaf going aboard and follows him, knocks on his door posing as a messenger, and this scene was awesome. I mean, I've been looking forward to this scene since I saw it in the trailer, but it was so cool to see it here. She comes in, says that he's going to prison, and basically tells him, I love the way she said it, how are you looking forward to eating in a prison cafeteria? He asks why she would say that, and she says that he's going to prison. So Olaf draws a knife, she draws a cleaver, he draws a machete, she draws a harpoon gun, and he says that there's a spider on her shoulder, and when Jacqueline's distracted, he drops a Murphy bed on her. He tries to jump out the porthole, but Jacqueline actually grabs him. He slithers out of his bathrobe, jumps into the ocean below. Jacqueline then finds a spyglass piece in the robe's pocket, so she is definitely going to find her way back to Olaf. You know that he's not going to get away, even though he thinks he's going to, he's not going to, and I thought that was really well done. But then we get to the ending where we see father and mother are actually in a bar in Peru called Monty's Manor, but they get no answer. So clearly they knew that the kids were going to see Monty, and a group of men then step up when they hear mother mention Monty's name. The parents prepare to find out where they can charter a plane because they need to know about Monty's whereabouts, and that is the way this episode ends. Really great stuff overall, but let's just get into this episode and where I think we're going to go for the last 4 episodes of the season. So, wow, I mean, really, there was a lot going on in this episode. This is probably the most eventful episode we had the show so far, and because that, there is definitely a great amount of stuff to talk about heading into these last 4 episodes, which technically, I guess you could say are 2 episodes, because you can combine really each part, especially for this one, you can combine each part together and just look at it as, 4 episodes. You could definitely do that, but I'm seeing it as 8 episodes. The show is an 8-episode series to begin with, so I'm going to count it as 8 episodes. But either way, guys, this is kind of irrelevant knowledge at this point. I've been reviewing the show for 4 episodes now. If you guys can't tell, I'm counting it as 8 episodes. Spoiler if you guys can't tell, but either way, I still really did love this episode. Let's talk about Monty, though, because it's clear that father and mother have knowledge of Monty. They knew that the kids were going to stay with him, but, to our knowledge, we were told last week, not last week, in the last episode, that they never mentioned Monty. They never mentioned him to the Baudelaires or anything like that. So, I don't know if it's because they didn't want the kids to know what Monty was going through, or if there's more going on there. I do think that Monty had ties to this secret organization that we don't know much about. The one that father's a part of, that eye on Count Olaf's ankle, and now that we've seen that Jacqueline was probably a part of it too, it just really makes me, it really makes me interested in what's really going on. That's a great way to heighten our interest level, knowing that Jacqueline was, in fact, a part of what's going on. I'm very interested in seeing where they're going to go with this storyline, because there really are a lot of places they can go there, and I'm interested in seeing what's going to happen with father and mother. Again, they're not going to get to the Baudelaires. That's just not going to happen in the show, because, again, the show would be over. So if they're leading us to that, I'm not entirely sure why. I don't know why they're trying to make us think that they're going to reunite with the kids. That's really my only flaw with this episode, but they're not reuniting with the kids anytime soon. The show would be over if that happened. There'd be no reason to do that. There's going to be 3 seasons, there's not really much reason for them to reunite with the kids. I don't know if that happens in the books. I'm pretty sure it didn't, because father and mother were allegedly dead in the books, and I heard they pretty much stay dead. So, again, I don't know where they're going with that. But let's talk about Jacqueline, because I love where Jacqueline is headed in this show. She is, Olaf is definitely, going in the direction of the Baudelaires, but Jacqueline's 10 steps ahead of him. She's done all the work. She knows, what Olaf is. She knows how to get rid of Olaf. She knows how to threaten him. She knows how to frighten him. Just all that stuff I love seeing. I love seeing her taunt Olaf. I love seeing her do this on her own. And unlike Poe, who I do think is smart, he just is very naive, and again, he sees the good in people. Jacqueline actually knows that Count Olaf is evil, and she actually can tell when Count Olaf is in disguise. disguise, and I love the way that Jacqueline is kind of the normal one out of all the adults. The rest of the adults on the show, I wouldn't say are dumb, but I wouldn't say that they are the most normal. They all have very, just very different personalities to them. They're very, they're just very eccentric in that way. Lemony's very depressed all the time. Olaf is just evil and all that kind of stuff, and very theatrical with him, with, his words, and Poe is very absent-minded, and that's something that Jacqueline really isn't. Jacqueline feels real. And these characters do feel real. I'm not saying that Poe and Count Olaf don't, because they definitely do, but Jacqueline is someone who actually, has a brain, and she actually does want to help the kids, and I like the direction where Jacqueline is headed, and I'm interested in seeing what this spyglass really is all about. We've seen that spyglass in episode 1, and I think we're going to start to get some clues about what that's really about. Klaus, again, just like episode 3, he's realizing that the spyglass means something, and I like that we're starting to tie it in there. I think that definitely is interesting. Aunt Josephine, let's talk about her, because I heard a lot of people say, going into the wide window, that it is the worst of the bunch, because Aunt Josephine doesn't really have a lot to do, and I can already tell, to me, she seems like she's going to be a character that comes there just to give explanations for things and just kind of explain things. That's what I think. I think she's just going to be a character that explains things, which kind of sucks, because Alfred Woodard is actually playing her, and I'm hoping she does a great job, but again, I haven't seen the episode, so I can't really say anything. I just heard that she is, and that is definitely the worst of the bunch, but I'm still interested in seeing it. I'm still interested in seeing where we're going to go from here, how Olaf is going to find them. I mean, it seems like Olaf knows what he's doing for the most part. He can find them in any way. His henchmen are not always on top of things, but when he gets them to, and he does something that he thinks is, tangible for them to get to the, a tangible way to get to the Baudelaires, he will jump at an opportunity, and I think that definitely is interesting that they showed that here. I really did love seeing Olaf and his, his troop. I love his troop. I think it's just a lot of fun to watch, and I definitely did enjoy that overall. I thought that was definitely interesting. But what I found even more interesting is, like I said, I love that Klaus, Violet, and Sunny finally got that revenge, because it's just been something that's been a long time coming. We've seen them being put through the ringer. We've seen Olaf, treat them like absolute shit. Now we've seen him kill Monty. It was time for them to take some action. I like the way they finally did take that action that they probably needed to take. This was something that really we've been leading up to for a long time now, and I was very happy to see them finally get that done. And that alone is enough reason for me to love this episode. I think that alone was, enough of a reason to really love what's going on here. But it also was a very fun episode. I mean, between the maze sequence, which was incredible to watch, they did an incredible job with that chase. There was actually some violence in this episode, and it went pretty heavy, I mean, with the violence. I mean, again, this is a kid's show. We have to remember that. This show is supposed to be made for kids, and they went pretty far in terms of Monty's death. Like, it was pretty graphic, seeing, what, Olaf actually did to Monty. Is it like Game of Thrones graphic? No, but for a kid's show, it's pretty graphic, and it's pretty impressive how well the show actually does handle death and how realistically it handles that when someone dies, they're dead. Like, they're not coming back. It's a serious thing, and I like the way the show does address that. Yes, the show is fun, but the show knows when to stay serious and when to be funny, and I like the way they had that balance there. There were also some hilarious moments. So like I said, the funniest moment by far is when Poe was crying and Olaf said, just leave him, he'll die of natural causes. I love lines like that. And also, Lemony really was not in this episode that much, which I was very surprised about. And like I said, I love Patrick Warburton, but I do think that aspect of the show is sometimes a bit tedious. I don't think we need everything explained to us. I don't think he needs to tell us everything that's going on, and I like that wasn't the case here. He only appeared about 4 or 5 times, and I'm fine with that. I think he only really needs to be on the show when he needs to be on. He doesn't need to be on every 5 seconds. He doesn't need to explain everything to me. I understand perfectly what's going on. I know that the show, again, is catered to kids, so maybe that's why they have him on. I get it's supposed to be funny. I get that as well. I completely understand it's supposed to be funny, and that he's on there because, he's a book writer, and he's trying to write about the Baudelaires. I completely understand that, but I just feel the show overuses him so much. I definitely will say I think they do overuse him, and you can make that argument for Olaf as well, but, you really can't have this show without Olaf. He's going to be the conflict of everything. He's going to be the driving force of all the evil in the show, and you really can't have any of those unfortunate events without him, so you kind of need him to be here. And I don't think the show is overusing, Neil Patrick Harris at all. I don't even, Neil Patrick Harris, he's doing his thing very, very well, and especially in this episode, episode, he had to channel two very different type of characters. Stefano and Count Olaf are very distinctly different, even though Count Olaf is terrible at acting, which is something we definitely saw here. Neil Patrick Harris did an incredible job of playing a character that is terrible and, you know, is terribly acted by Count Olaf, but also trying to do that accent with Stefano. It's a very hard job to do, and he's doing it really well. I mean, you can really see how experienced Patrick Harris is in this kind of stuff, and I really am liking the direction that took him. I really did like that. And I love the way the Violet also, I love that, you know, 2 times throughout the episode, Count Olaf and Poe told her, that's not what nice girls do. I love that they said that line to her, because yeah, Violet isn't your typical nice girl. She's not the goody-good. They might see her as the goody-good because, again, that's the stereotypical rich girl who does nothing wrong. But Violet is a little bit more rebellious. You know, she loves to make inventions. She loves to think out of the box. She loves to make inventions for things that people never thought of before. That's what we were initially introduced to her, and I think it's something the show is handling very well, is that Violet isn't perfect. Violet does make mistakes sometimes, and Violet in general isn't your typical, you know, teenage girl, and I like that the show really is showing. I thought that was very well done. But overall, guys, this was a very rewarding episode that I feel like we definitely been needing for a long time coming. I think for me, this was definitely the turning point of the show. I mean, we're halfway through the season, so it definitely makes sense why we got such a big episode like this. But overall, guys, I absolutely love this episode. I am going to give a Series of Unfortunate Events Season 1, Episode 4, The Reptile Room Part 2, a 4.75 out of 5, or an A. So over, guys, my review of Series Unfortunate Events. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode overall. Where do you think the show is going to go from here? Again, as I say every episode, if you have seen the season, please try not to spoil it for me. I really would appreciate it. I'm going to try to finish the season this week. If you guys can't tell, I'm trying to do that. I'm really into the show right now. I can't wait to see where they're going to go as the show goes on. But that's for this video. Hope you guys enjoy it. We'll see you guys in my next one, which will be for the season premiere of Outsiders. I meant to review this weekend. I just didn't get a chance to. I'm going to watch it, and then I will review it too, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.